So I hope people were able to locate the agenda. It was sent out in a link this time. It's 6:39. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Todd, could you go ahead and lead us through roll call?
Good thing. Chantel?
Present.
Sue?
I'm here.
Jeanette?
Present.
Ernest?
Present.
Jessica?
Present.
Laura?
Present.
Catherine?
Present.
Andy?
Present.
And we'll note that Ann is here, but she can't let us know verbally. And Lindell?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Todd. And as we always do, we'll go ahead and go through reciting our mission. If folks want to unmute themselves and chime in, that's awesome. If you don't, that's also okay. But if we could go ahead and say our mission, which is to act as a strong
advocate
to
to justice and equal opportunity
by providing
citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights.
Wow, that didn't sound as awkward as the first couple times we've ever said it. Thank you for doing that. And we'll go ahead and open it up to matters by the public. I see there's 3 people that joined us. Todd, could you go ahead and let our attendees know the protocol for if they have anything to say?
Sure thing. So if you are joining by computer, you can use the raise hand function, and we'll take public comments in the order that hands are raised, and I'll make note of that. If anyone wants to join by phone, you press *9 to raise your hand. So right now we have no hands raised.
Awesome. We'll note that Counselors Lloyd Snook and Michael Payne are in attendance today. Thank you for being on this call. Bridget Moss or Jeremy Johnson, if you would like to comment, please raise your hand. We just got a dial-in number. So for that dial-in number, we're in the public comment section of under matters by the public. If you would like to speak, please press *9 to talk or raise your hand, and then Todd will unmute you. Okay. So that person has not pressed *9. I really hope that's not Miss Ann's number. I'm assuming that it's not her. All right, so if there's nothing else left by the public to comment, we're going to go ahead and close that out. As there were no comments raised, we don't really have any responses to matters by the public, and we'll go ahead and go through with our minutes. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes from last meeting or the last couple meetings, regular meetings, that we should go ahead and approve if folks are ready.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from 8:20 and 9:17.
I second the motion.
Okay, Todd, could you lead us through the vote?
Sure can. And just to let you know, that is Ann's number that's joined us. Okay. So Sue? You're muted, Sue.
As to the minutes, yes, I approve them.
Okay. Thank you. And then Jeanette?
Yay.
Ernest?
Yes.
Jessica?
Abstain.
Laura?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
and Anne. We can't hear you still, but I saw you mouth yes. Is that correct? Can you give me a thumbs up in your picture if it's a yes? Okay, thank you. And Lindell.
Yes.
So the minutes are approved.
Thanks, Todd. I don't understand why Miss Ann's stuff does not work, but I really did want to open up with Miss Ann today and talking about her. Miss Ann, are you? All right. Well, I'm just going to say my piece about Miss Ann. And if she can.
Well, she's in the attendees. Does somebody have to let the attendee in to talk? I don't know who's.
She's already enabled to talk.
She's
Okay.
actually, yeah, she's a panelist now.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with her, but Miss Ann, we did want to take some time out before we get into the work of our session to go ahead and give you gratitude for the years that you've served on the Human Rights Commission. You've been here since its inception. And so we know that human rights is something that's deep in your DNA and runs throughout your heart. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time to just talk about Miss Ann and the support I guess she's been for me. And if people are interested in chiming in after I share a little bit, then the floor will be open. But Miss Ann, I wanted to let you know personally that when I joined the Human Rights Commission about 2 years ago, it was pretty hard. It was pretty hard to, I will say, to step into a leadership role as a new appointed commissioner. And I really do appreciate the way in which you've been able to support me in terms of just always speaking your truth. You've really held our commission to not only speaking truth to power, but just doing it in the light of authenticity. So you've always kept with your views, and I really do appreciate and respect that. And then you've also been there for just guiding me in general in terms of learning Robert's rules and the way in which a human rights commission, like how we should be governing ourselves, and putting me in contact with folks through VHHR. Even just recently, you gave me the contact information to be able to talk with Curtis, and Sue and I and Todd were able to meet with them just this week. And so all the stuff that you've handed down to me, I deeply appreciate. Your knowledge and just being open to training someone like me, even when maybe it didn't seem as if I was as open to learning from you. I do want you to know that I've always been open and respectful of you and enjoyed your time here. So if anybody has anything else to say for Miss Ann, please go ahead and do so. And I'm sure Miss Lewis, our vice chair, is going to want to say some words. Miss Ann or Miss Lewis, we can't hear you.
Muted and it doesn't want to stay on. Stay on. Okay. No, I came on at the same time Ann did, and when I came on, she was the only other person on the commission that I even had heard her name. It was a whole bunch of totally new people to me, and so I was so glad to have somebody whose name I at least knew, even if I didn't know her very well. But I've gotten to know her very well over these last several years, and I'm going to miss seeing her on these meetings, although we've managed to get ourselves on something else again where I'll continue to run into her. But yes, it's been a pleasure, as you know.
Anybody else want to say a couple words?
Sure, I would just love to thank you, Anne, for your service. This is Jeanette, and let you know how much I have appreciated your perspective, the sincerity with which you share, and just the strength with the message that you bring to our conversations. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me now?
Yes. Yay.
But finally, we worked out some. Thank you all for your kind words. I really do appreciate it. And I'm just sorry this phone and this laptop has not been cooperating lately. But one day it will be better, I'm sure. And all I want to say is the years that I have been on the commission have been a true experience and an opportunity for me to learn more and more about the people that make up the city of Charlottesville and outside of my normal group of people that I'm usually around. All of us have our different opinions. We have our different thoughts, but I've always felt that at least we could share how we feel and we could listen, reflect, have differences of opinion, and also agree on things after someone has spoken. So thank you, the City of Charlottesville, the City Council, and to all of those Human Rights Commission members that I once worked with and the ones I currently work with. Thank you all so much for interesting ride, as they would say.
Awesome. I definitely agree with that. We haven't always agreed, but I do think that that's just the power of the Human Rights Commission. And we're going to miss you, Miss Anne. We definitely are going to miss you. Right. If there are no other comments that folks would like to share, I'm going to keep moving us through. Miss Anne, know that we very much appreciate you and the work that the service that you volunteered to our city for the years that you've done it.
I think Todd's got a comment. Here you go.
Just wanted to offer, my words of gratitude to Anne as well. And, just having been here for a little over 2 years, I definitely appreciated Anne's guidance right off the bat and just her welcoming spirit as a staff person helping to support the commission. So I'm going to miss you and really do value having been able to work with you. So thank you.
Awesome.
I wanted to say thank you as well. Appreciate all that you've brought to the commission and just the sort of continuity of knowledge that you kind of helped, the kind of group of us that came on. So that was much appreciated.
I would also like to say thank you very much for the welcome that you gave us, especially this large group that came in a couple of years ago. I really appreciate the conversation and the welcome. Thank you.
And I know I'm relatively new, but I've always felt very welcome by you, and I thank you for all of your input and kindred spirit. So thank you.
Both shy on Zoom, but I have to say thanks as well. You were awesome in 2015 when I first came on to the commission, and you're still awesome. So you'll be missed.
Well, Ms. Smith, thank you for your I think we started back with AATF some years ago, and that's when we kind of you brought me along, and appreciate your wisdom and you being Charlottesville and your knowledge. Thank you.
This is Ann. Can we stop all this mushy stuff before I start crying?
All right. Well, with that, we will keep it moving. We just appreciate you, Miss Ann. And there's no other way we can give gratitude for you because we're not in person. So anyhow, we'll go ahead and move on to our business matters. And there's some updates from our council boards and commissions work on October 6th of 2020. And I believe this is Lindell and Sue with this. Sorry, Todd.
Sorry to interrupt. We only approved one set of minutes, or was that a motion to approve both? Okay,
Yeah, that was a motion to approve both the minutes.
just wanted to make sure. I was distracted at that point. Thank you.
No problem.
I don't think we're, unless I totally let it slip my mind, are we the ones that are supposed to report about the board and commission work session? No.
No, they weren't in attendance. That was you and I, Chantel. We were.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Todd. That
okay.
was a really vague name. So it's just like there was a lot of meetings this past month. So Todd, could you just kick us off then?
Sure. So what this meeting was on October 6th. Council had held a work session regarding boards and commissions in which they made some decisions about how all of the boards and commissions would function going forward. As it relates to the Human Rights Commission, a couple of changes that are worthy of note. First of all, they will allow going forward an additional meeting per month, so which is good for us, maybe a little bit challenging for Brian and his team, but we can have another publicly noticed meeting, which is good because we need to form a nominating committee of at least 3 commissioners, and so that's important, and we'll be able to do that, which is great. Additionally, there was some discussion about the appointment of additional commissioners, and there was no conclusion reached at this meeting. But what they did say is that they'll take it up again at their council meeting on the 19th. So it's not a finished conversation, I guess is the way to say that. So Chantel, I don't know if there were any other major takeaways that you wanted to share about that, but those were the 2 things that I thought about.
No, I think that was correct. And we still have Counselor Payne and Snook in the audience. I don't know if they would like to chime in. If they would like to speak a little bit more about the board and commission, city council's board and commission's meeting, just press *9 or raise your hand if you're on the phone, and we'll go ahead and unmute you. But Todd, I think you did a really great job of representing us at that meeting. And
perhaps the only other update I was remembering is looking at my notes is that when it was discussed about when the hire of the new deputy city manager that would also oversee the Office of Human Rights and Human Rights Commission, the ballpark date was given as December. So that was the other tidbit of information that seems valuable. So, and hiring of a director or manager for the office and commission would not take place until after that, the appointment of that deputy.
Looks like Michael Payne's hand was up, but it's
Michael, I did allow you to speak if you want to. I did see that your hand was up. You just need to unmute yourself if you would like to say some. Okay. I guess I've kind of gotten used to the Zoom awkwardness of just waiting for people to speak because it doesn't faze me at all, but we should keep it moving. Because I don't know if Counselor Payne actually wanted to chime in there, if he was just. Okay. Todd, do you have anything else you'd like to say from that meeting?
No, I think that's the major points that I had noted down.
Awesome. We did know and push for them to consider the appointments of the commission. And as Todd said, they're going to pick it back up on the October 19th city council meeting. So we'll
Well,
just,
one thing from that boards and commissions meeting was that there was a limited number of slots for those subcommittee meetings. Is there some kind of way that they're prioritizing? I heard it was first come, first serve, but how do we sort of know if we have that opportunity or not based on the limited slots?
Brian can correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe that what Brian had recommended was that all boards and commissions that are currently meeting could have one slot, or one additional slot per month. But Brian, please, because this affects you, hope you will comment and weigh in on that.
Yep. There are 6 slots total for all boards and commissions. Right now, there's only 1 reservation taken for November and December. So there are 5 openings each of the next 2 months. So if you want to tell me right now, I will go ahead and pencil you in.
awesome. Thanks, Brian. And Michael Payne had dropped off, but he's back, and I'm going to go ahead and allow him to speak because his hand is raised.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to use Zoom on my phone and it's not liking that. But yeah, I didn't have too much to add. I just one of the conversations that came up with a lot of our boards and commissions is we just really want to be intentional about trying to create better communication and connection between council and our boards and commissions, and the Human Rights Commission was definitely a part of that. In our discussion, we're really recognizing that many of our boards and commissions, I don't think we're taking advantage enough of the work they're doing and their skill set. So I just know that's something we really want to improve, not just with the Human Rights Commission, but with a lot of boards and commissions. So I know you've already reached out to us and there's been a lot of conversations already, but please continue to let us know if you see things that we can do that can give you clearer direction from us, or actions that we can take that can support the work you're doing. And I know the conversation around like appointments as well is connected to that as well. But just wanted to add that in, and if now or at any point you have any questions, just let me know. Happy to answer anything, but thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Counselor Payne. Does anybody have any questions for him while he's still on the line? All right. I'm going to keep us just moving a little bit quicker. So it's October and we have to nominate someone for chair as well as vice chair. So we do need to get together our nominating committee just as we did last year. And I am wanting us to do that by volunteer. So I hope there's enough volunteers for this. If not, then I will, I guess it would be voluntold people to hopefully join the nominating commission, please. So I'm gonna need someone to probably make a motion if that could happen, and then we could appoint some people.
Chantel, can I ask a question? This is Jeanette. Is this the full new commissioners? Are we missing anyone?
That's a good question, Jeanette. It's not, well, in terms of the folks that we voted last meeting to appoint to our commission, they haven't been appointed yet. And
but I
so,
mean, the past members that were on, should I assume if they're not here that they're no longer on the commission?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
This is our full commission in terms of that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I see your hand, Miss Lewis.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I interpreted Jeanette's question correctly, but I think new commissioners, if they're appointed on October 19th, are eligible for being considered for any of the offices that we are going to nominate. If that is what Jeanette was looking for. No, but that is something that is the nominating committee, whoever volunteers to do it, should know that whoever is on the commission by basically January, because if they're in the pool, if they've been nominated, if they've been appointed by council before before we actually vote in December. I should have said December. So,
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you, Vice Chair. So I hope that folks understand that. So we're going to create our nominating body, and if new commissioners happen to get appointed between now and before we take the vote, then they can easily be nominated as well to be considered for our leadership positions. Awesome.
Chantel, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what's involved with the nominating committee?
Yeah, sure. So the nominating committee, you're basically in charge of taking nominations from folks. So it'll be 3 people, I believe is the number for forming a nominating committee. And people will email you their nominations for chair or vice chair. And that's pretty much it. You may meet 1 time or 2 times. Okay.
at the same time, it's always good for a nominating committee, of which I've been a member of for 100 times, but I'm not doing this one, to poll the current people who are in leadership positions as to whether they're interested in continuing or not. That's always a protocol that a nominating committee uses. And then soliciting from the members their recommendations for who they would like to see in those leadership positions. I think you'd be wonderful on it.
Happy to help.
Okay, so
You
Jeanette.
can also volunteer.
Jeanette volunteered. Wait,
everybody at once.
Jeanette, Jessica.
Can we get some male representation on this?
Oh, I don't have to. I can bow out.
Absolutely.
I can step out.
No, you can stay.
Okay, I don't know what just happened, Ernest, but I was getting people to volunteer and I just feel like they recanted on what they just said.
I have a question. If you're on the nominating committee, should you not be on the nominating committee if you want to be nominated, or does it matter?
I don't think that matters.
Okay.
You're able.
I have seen many nominating committees pull leadership from the nominating committee.
Yeah. I mean, you probably should say that out loud, Jeanette. I mean, it makes it sound like you're scheming. Or
seriously.
No, I'm not scheming. I was thinking of Ernest, but I will step back and let Ernest and Jessica and Laura, who I think all volunteered, be on. So thank you.
All right. So Lauren, Jessica, and Ernest. Is that?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you so much. And we'll follow up with you all. Lauren, I feel like you're new, but you're not really new. So you probably know more than I'm assuming you know. But
and
we'll find out.
I'm also advocating to step out because I am brand new. So Janet, I almost defer to you since I'm so brand new that I'm okay to bow out.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean that comment as if you're a new person, you shouldn't do it. I just meant that feel free to ask probably vice chair more. I know some things, but Miss Lewis was our parliamentarian for a very, very long time. So I do think if y'all have questions, you should probably ride into the vice chair, Sue Lewis, about the nominating committee. But no, it's great to be new. That's not a bad thing. You gotta learn somehow. So thanks, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and move us on to item C on our agenda, which is the HRC resolution regarding local eviction moratorium. And I'll give a little bit of background. I hope folks are able to read it through, but this was the resolution that we actually wrote a couple months ago. And by a couple months ago, I really mean like 6 months ago at the beginning of COVID, around March or April, when it became apparent that people could have been potentially lose their housing. due to economic pressures from COVID. And so we drafted this. The Virginia legislator the governor ended up passing some legislation around protecting those things. So we didn't actually pass this resolution because things from the state level came into effect. Those things have now expired. And so we're looking to actually pass this resolution as an effort to support our own community in evictions. And I do want to say that this past week, Ms. Sue Lewis, Vice Chair Lewis, and Todd and I met with the city attorney, and I did learn a little bit more about resolutions. And I'm completely ad-libbing from what Miss Allison Davies told us, but she did talk about resolutions as being more than just, I guess my perception of it was it's symbolic and they don't really hold any weight or hold any water. And what she communicated was that resolutions are a way for the Human Rights Commission or any commission to basically memorialize the thinking of our body. So passing resolutions or for processes or things that we really stand for, they end up being more than just a symbol of us standing up for something. It becomes kind of like, it just becomes our repertoire for what we believe in and how we should follow and govern for more than just now, for human rights commissions in the future. So I just wanted to give that plug because we're going to be looking at another resolution tonight. And none of these resolutions may directly impact actions that are going to immediately be taken at all, but it's important for us to start just solidifying the way that we think and move and want to tackle issues. So I hope that was a good recap of what Allison Davies told us. Sue, please chime in. I know you've been doing this for a really long time if I got something wrong. Okay. So with that, we'll go with the HRC resolution regarding the local eviction moratorium. And we have that start as an action that we could potentially take if people are interested in voting as our body, adopting that and passing that on. So I'm just going to open it up for conversation.
Thank you for this, Chantel. I appreciate this work on this. It's very good.
You can send your gratitude to Todd. I
Thank
did
you,
like
Todd.
check, but he really put this together.
It's an excellent document. Thank you, Todd.
Chantel?
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry. People are in.
I'm happy to make a motion to adopt this resolution number HR 20-1 because I think it has to have a motion and a second.
I second.
All right, so now you can discuss the gist of it or the pros and cons if you want to, but I've made the motion. It's on the floor.
Awesome. Go ahead, Andy.
So was it here or where was I was reading through materials. There's discussion about how there's no ability at the local level to make any moratoriums, regarding eviction. Does that sort of influence what we're doing? Because I feel like it's still important to put that position out there, but knowing that it doesn't really, there's nothing locally that we can actually do at City Hall. Does that affect how we're putting this out there?
Thank you, Andy. So I saw Vice Chair Lewis' hand, and then I saw Ann's hand go up.
Just want to speak to that, Andy. It's a be it resolved is very clear that we're not telling City Council to do anything except promote within their legal authority, promote a continued moratorium on evictions resulting from that be it resolved statement is perfectly legitimate in my point of view. It's not telling council in a cranky way that we don't think they're doing the right thing.
Miss Ann?
I would agree with Sue, and I was going to say basically the same thing. They just know, and they just know how we feel about it, and just it's always good to have it on record how we feel, how the Human Rights Commission feels about this.
This is Jeanette. I think we would just need to make a change in terms of the Director of Emergency Management, Dr. Richardson's name is still in there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeanette. Todd, do you see that in the?
Yeah, do we want to change it because he was the one who ordered it at the time, or do you want to change it? It's more of a historical reference, but I can certainly just remove it.
That's how I interpret it, as a historical reference. So I think it's fine to keep it, but that's how I read that.
All right. The first time I read it, I also read it that way as well, but I can see what Jeanette's saying as well. So if people are okay with keeping it the same, I mean, factually, it's correct, I believe, how it's presented.
Yeah, I read it wrong.
Okay. It's been a long day. And Andy, thanks for bringing up that comment though around legality. We talked about this with Allison, and I figured that maybe she would say something if it was illegal for us to do this, or if it would not matter. But
well, yeah, it's not, what we do isn't, I agree, we're not sort of putting any sort of legal bind, but just considering what the efficacy of this kind of resolution is, knowing that it's not going anywhere. So just want to make clear what our goal is here. So that's all.
I think that is a good point. And I believe you might be responding to an email that Councilor Payne sent in response to an email that Chantel sent to the council and regarding these upcoming
right. That's what it was.
Resolutions.
Yeah.
And so I also wanted to comment on another thing that Councilor Payne had mentioned, and I think this is something I'm working on a memo to council about this, just to clarify our enforcement scope of enforcement. But I want to speak to the housing piece because I've heard it brought up in several meetings now, some confusion around what level of enforcement the office and the commission have. And I want to make it clear that the ordinance and state law currently give us general authority to investigate housing discrimination cases, including on the basis of source of funds, which was, I think, something that Councilor Payne brought up. So I do want to just make sure everybody knows that we shouldn't shy away from referring people to the office if somebody has been, for example, they have a housing choice voucher and they approach an apartment complex here in the city and they're told that they will not be accepted because of that voucher. We can do something about that. Again, has to be within the city limits, but and I've had some people approach me from the county already about that, and we couldn't do anything directly, but we can refer people to the right place and follow up. But in any case, just want to make sure that's clear.
Thank you, Todd.
I have a question. If we approve this, what is the next steps for this document?
Thank you. That's a really great question, Jessica. And I was gonna, so if we approve it, it does get signed. I believe we share all past resolutions. It will get sent to city councilors. But even in sending it to them, I was just thinking that, there must be more tools in our toolbox besides like policies for protecting residents against evictions during this time. And I don't quite know what those solutions might be, or suggestions or recommendations that we could bundle this resolution with if we approve and pass it when we send it to council. But just keeping that at the top of our minds, because there may be some, other measures, soft power measures we could take, or city council may think of considering, especially as Todd has gotten just a lot of inquiries. This is a good chunk of his job, helping people navigate housing in Charlottesville. So if folks have any ideas around some different things we could send as we do send this resolution, if it does get past the city council, we don't have to share them all here, but just shoot me an email or Todd an email. I greatly appreciate that. All right. Are there
Also, I want to make you also aware that in terms of soft measures, one of the things that the office is supporting is that the Community Resource Hotline and Human Services, which is managing that rental and mortgage assistance program along with United Way, they're actually using the office right now 3 times a week in the afternoons to catch people who are coming out of General District Court from evictions and actually providing them direct service so they can actually pay their rent and keep themselves from being evicted. So that's one way we're indirectly supporting it, basically by just offering the space up. But that just wanted to make you aware of that, so you knew that was happening.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. That was a perfect example, actually. So if there are no more discussion points, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. All right. And then so we'll close out the discussion, and then Todd, could you go ahead and lead us through the vote?
Sure thing. Okay, so Sue? I can see you trying to say
Sorry, I
yes.
keep forgetting to unmute me. I should have just raised my hand.
No worries, thank you. But was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Jeanette?
Yes.
Ernest?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
And Lindell?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. We're going to go ahead and move to the second resolution. If people feel like I'm moving us really quickly, let me know. I love being with y'all, but it's late. So please feel free to slow me down if you have something that you wanted to share. So the next resolution is the HRC resolution regarding a commissioner removal. I hope you all were able to read through it. Really quickly, there were some events that maybe inspired this resolution, but I do want to be clear that this resolution is more about our operating procedures moving forward. This is not relating to any specific commissioner on the board, but more about, again, how we memorialize the work that we do and how we can help self-govern our own board and commission. One of the things that came up in the City Council's work session on boards and commissions was just about the number of people that are on different boards, how you appoint certain people. This measure is just one of those things that we could give our own self as a tool in our toolbox for now and for future reference, just in case, there may be a commissioner on the board that maybe the intentions they came with wasn't necessarily how things work in practicality. So we should have some mechanisms to figure that out ourselves. And that is all I have to say about this resolution. So as soon as I started talking, Miss Ann's hand shot up. So I'm gonna go ahead.
I'm not going to change. When I first read the resolution, my major concern was, why was there a need for such? I mean, this is something that I see that could have come to the commissioners. And as a commission, we could have discussed how we felt about it and how we plan to proceed. Now, I do know in an email that it did say that some of the commissioners, you and some of the commissioners, had input on this. However, my opinion might have been different. And I know it would have been different than others. And, it's like we're almost predicting with this resolution that something like this will come up in the future. My desire would be if something like this comes up in the future, then we address it with the individual commissioner and come to some kind of resolution. The resolution could very well be the commissioner resigns. Then that's all done with. But I think that because this was instigated or taken apart by, done by other commissioners and all weren't a party to it, I think that we don't need it at all. I think as a commission and the individuals in the commission, they could handle it.
Thank you, Ms. Ann. So let me just be clear and reiterate. This resolution is draft. We're not taking a vote on this tonight. This is up for our discussion and for our body. The people that were, I guess, a part of writing this commission this resolution actually is only myself, Todd, and Vice Chair Lewis. So no other commissioner outside of the chair, vice chair, and Todd. We just drafted this up between the past couple weeks of things happening, just in case, and to start this conversation. And this is when our body, like as an entire group, would discuss it and what's important and what's not about it. So I just wanted to be clear that no one's trying to scheme to, do anything, Miss Ann.
I'm afraid I wasn't implying that people were scheming. I'm just implying that it would have been something that all of us knew about and all of us could have had a discussion before anything, any resolution or any document was written about a particular situation.
Okay. I understand. So you mean before the document was written in the first place? Talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Jessica, I saw your hand up.
I think Sue's hands was up before mine.
Sorry.
Okay, just for clarification, I did review this with Chantel and Todd and Allison, but I had no input into writing it. I just need to make that very clear. I did not write any piece of this.
Yeah, I guess if we're being specific, Todd wrote the entire thing.
Yeah, so I should say that. So one of the things that there was, and I'll speak very generally about that. There was a concern raised about a lack of procedure around this, and the suggestion by the city attorney's office was to draft a resolution for consideration by the Human Rights Commission. And so that's what I did, was just draft some language so that you could start to think about it, not in any sense of saying this is final, but to start to put some of the structure down so that you could say, change this, fix that, take that out, whatever. But that was the suggestion by the city attorney's office as the method by which we might approach this. So, but I can respect that we could have brought that suggestion to the commission prior to drafting the language, not knowing exactly how to proceed there. We just took it upon ourselves to start the language just to get it started so you'd have something to consider. But yeah, that's where I know, that's what I know about it.
Miss Lawn, Catherine.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate having a draft in front of us to work with so that we're not starting with nothing. It was very concerning when I realized that we had no procedures for addressing a serious problem. And so I'm glad that we have this resolution. I think it looks great. I don't have any suggestions for changing it. But I do think we needed some kind of procedure for egregious misconduct.
Thank you, Catherine. Jessica, and then I think Jeanette's hand went up.
The only thing that's not clear in this is, how do I word it? Well, this kind of reminds me like of a, I just have to say it out loud, what's in my mind. This kind of reminds me like of a code of conduct that you have to outline, like this is how we're going to conduct ourselves. And then someone has clearly like violated that. And I think that's missing in like the vagueness of if an issue comes up. And I'd like to have clarity on like, I would like to have clarity on like if the commissioner can be notified first, like like the procedure of how that's going to happen. Like, let's say if I, not that I would do anything egregious, but if I did something egregious, does that mean that Chantel, Todd, co-chairs, Ms. Lewis are going to reach out to me and like give me an opportunity to talk about, like, I would like to have that language. If we're going this route, I'd like to provide examples like of the kind of things that we're saying that are egregious. And or harmful. I'm saying egregious, but in the language that's harmful. And then like the procedures of who's actually going to investigate. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Jessica. And then it was Jeanette, I think.
I had a similar question. So in number A, it says enable the commission to conduct an immediate investigation. If we're in between meetings, might we want to enable the chairs of the commission, or, you know, like, just wanted a little more clarity on that. And then also it could just be that I'm not used to reading more legal language, but I can't tell with C if it says upon conclusion of the investigation, issue a written determination to forward to City Council as to good cause for removal. What if we came to the conclusion that we don't request removal? Maybe we should make that more open, like as to a good cause for subsequent action or whatever it would be.
Thank you, Jeanette. And then Miss Lewis, I think you're.
Yeah, I've had, since I wasn't involved in writing it, I have had a little bit of problems with exactly what it is we're trying to do. And the Be It Resolved says, we're recommending that City Council pursue these actions when, from my perspective, it should be an internal document that we are, you know, City Council shouldn't have any input into this until the commission itself has done the investigation. And I totally agree with Jessica about connecting to the perceived offender, if I can put it that way, until we've done our job. And, you know, the whereases are obvious. They're obvious things. But it's the Be It Resolved on this that brings City Council, we're asking City Council to do something. And I don't think this particular resolution of code of conduct, as Jessica indicates, is anything for City Council to do. Our final step in something like this would indicate to City Council that they remove a commissioner for good cause. That's all it is. So I think the whole Be It Resolved has to be rewritten to reflect Ann's concerns, Jessica's concerns, Jeanette's concerns, my concerns about just exactly who and what we're asking to do something.
Thank you, Ms.
Yep.
Lewis.
I can just comment too. I think some of that got messed up because we started revising parts of it. And I think part of the draft, when we realized it was actually the commission that would do the investigating, we didn't change that City Council piece at the top. And I was wondering if council had to actually authorize the commission to be able to do that. And so that's no, I see a great shaking of the head no. So yeah, I think that we should certainly clarify that language because I agree it's not clear, even though I wrote it.
Yeah. I would like to say, if I remember correctly, the intent around it being open enough and not prescribing too many like buckets was to enable our commission to have the flexibility. So the first action would be, you know, I can't remember the exact language, but starting the investigation that ideally would be done by a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee. And that ad hoc committee, you know, would be the one that's sitting over that. I think we also discussed that we may have to have an accompanying, like another procedural document that really kind of lays out what are the roles of that subcommittee and how they could do that investigation. But the intent of this first resolution is to just provide us some like, what's the word? I don't know. I don't want to call it like infrastructure, but you know, whatever that skeleton is that construction workers use, those things, scaffolding, scaffolding for our work moving forward. So just, yeah, I think that's how I was at least imagining the intent of the language being implemented, like in practice. So we form an ad hoc subcommittee. They would probably talk to that person, as Miss Ann had called out, and there would be some discussion there, depending on what type of situation it is. If it's something that occurred on social media, if it was hearsay, I mean, there's only so much you can do depending on what type of evidence you have. And to Jeanette's point, like if that subcommittee renders like there wasn't a lot that we have that supports good cause in terms of like a commissioner violating our mandate. And that to me was like those buckets that Jessica, you were speaking to, like in terms of our conduct or behavior, none of us should be acting in a way that is causing into question the way that we feel about people's race or sexual orientation, or, you know, all of those protected classes that are in our ordinance, which I do believe that's in the resolution language and under all those whereases. So if we do wish to get a little bit more specific, I think that's good. I just wanted to let people know that it's kind of left a little bit broad and open to give our commission some flexibility in how we do decide to implement the policy moving forward. I saw some hands. Miss Ann.
My major concern with this, and having been on the commission for 7 years, a situation like this has never arisen. And I think that we need to sometimes give people the benefit of the doubt. Some of us may interpret something one way, and the other, someone else may interpret it another way. And once again, I saw this as a situation where we rushing to conclusion and not really having an opportunity to speak to that person and find out, where was your mind? Where was your head at, or whatever? And I don't even think that we need such a resolution. I think we need to look at taking situations case by case, and we don't need to have any kind of document to tell us how to do it. Because bottom line, it's going to be up to the commission and the office to decide what would happen to a commissioner.
Miss Ann, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you on that one. I really do think we need some policy. And I am not like the most formal person ever. I kind of cringe at like over formality. Sometimes I fumble with calling each other Mrs. and Mrs. You'll see me on this. I'll go from saying vice chair to just Sue. I hear you on us being able to operate. I do think in some ways us being informal helped us to hold some heavy conversations and people not being afraid to speak what their real values are. I do think this resolution is how it would work in practice. Granted, any type of policy in practice really just depends on the body, but how I think about it is that there are some things that we may or may not be doing in our private lives. And the way in which we're doing that is in like on a social media, for example. If people are posting on social media and the public has access to that, and people are aware that a commissioner of the Human Rights Commission is posting things on social media that just really undermines their faith in coming to our commission, that's a huge problem. We can't have situations where, and I'm calling out social media because I think, you know, to be just candid, our president has made social media and Twitter a thing. and it's way more in our public lives probably than before the 2016 election. So all of us are probably on it in some way or another. And so that's fine. But I do think that just means it's more important for how we share things, and we should be thinking about some of the work we put on social media. That's just, I think about it all the time. I'm not just posting whatever I want to post at any given point in time. I'm always thinking about how I'm reflecting, you know, the values of this commission, even when I'm out there sharing different ideas. And we volunteer to play these roles, and that's just a part of it. That's just a part of our job at this point in time. If we don't want to be like a little bit more sensitive about some of the views we share on social media, we probably should not be a human rights commissioner. There are other boards and commissions when maybe that doesn't matter as much. I personally think it should matter for every board or commission, but this is our job. So I really hate to disagree with you, Anne, on your last commission meeting, but I'm just gonna do that.
Okay, it happens.
Go ahead.
Jessica wanted to.
Oh, okay.
put her
Sorry.
hand up.
So it's Jessica and then Sue.
Yeah, so I think, not to belabor this, the point about social media, I think it is really important. Like I personally, like I have a public social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. I take very personally like what I'm putting out there. I think I still feel really strongly that we should call out such things, because I think it puts people on edge. Like are we policing each other? Or like now it finally gives the public to police every little detail of something that I'm posting. Like it just makes me a little like antsy, even though I know this is what I'm called to do. But I think we should call out those things specifically, because the Human Rights Commission is in the here and now, but social media is a huge part of how we're communicating across different platforms. So I really still feel strongly that we should call out specific things that would bar this kind of like investigation. And the last is, I don't know about the wording. I mean, I know it's we changed wording, not just the larger Charlottesville community in, because we changed, we wanted to change language within our bylaws to include like people that don't live in Charlottesville specifically. And I just wanted to double check my understanding that that would cover, we're talking about everyone that is eligible to be a commissioner. Sorry, it's a detail, but.
Thank you, Jessica. And then Lindell, and then after that, I'm going to move us, like this is just a discussion and we could figure out what we want to do. Okay, sorry, Sue and then Lindell.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we send this resolution back for a better be it resolved section and bring it back to the commission for further action. I do agree that it's probably good to have this sort of procedure in place, but I initially objected to it, and if we were going to vote on it, I'd have voted it down. That it came up in reference to a particular person rather than a general policy. That's something that I think organizations should never do, write their rules and policies based on a particular person's actions. But I'm happy to entertain a resolution that cleans up the resolved section and gives us something to go by. We passed this previous resolution that was written, what, 6 months ago at least? And for me, there's no need to get a resolution like this on the books immediately. It's too close to the person and the issue involved.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Lindell.
I was just going to propose that we send it to a committee to work on. So I think that would be the smart thing to do now.
Great. Is it possible to get documents to previous resolutions? Jessica, I think that's a Todd question.
Yeah, I meant it for Todd. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can answer that. So on box, the one resolution that the commission passed in 2019 is in the folder there. I believe all the other resolutions are probably in Charlene's electronic files, which I can find. And that's a good reminder for me to go through her archives, because it's a little bit, there's a lot of stuff in there because she was there. She was working in the office for a long time, but that's a good reminder, because I think there are other resolutions that we should archive. May take me a little bit to find where they are, but I will find them and put them in the same folder. Thanks for that.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep us moving because we do have some resolution things that actually have actions on it. This wasn't something that we were going to vote on tonight. If people are interested, I'm going to go ahead and ask if we could create an ad hoc committee to review this resolution. If anybody was interested in leading the ad hoc committee, if not, we could, put it in the parking lot and just put it in a Google Doc or something and continue to work on it when people have time. But, ad hoc committee would make it a little bit quicker. So if anyone is interested in that, all right, we got Catherine Lon.
Not interested in that. I'm interested in saying, I think, can we just put it in the Google Doc? And the reason is because if we make an ad hoc committee, then we have to have a meeting slot. And I'd hate to use up one of our meeting slots for this instead of just putting it in the Google Doc.
Awesome. So Todd, I know you're trying to get us on a different system, but
well, so the other idea here is that if much the way we've been doing the work on the human rights ordinance, we have two commissioners working in concert with the city attorney's office and myself. You could do it that way. It does not require public notice, and the work can still be done. Happy to put it on. I think that Box is a much easier way to share the document and edit it. Google Drive tends to get lots of owners, and then we have a hard time collecting all the documents into one central place. So that's just my pitch for that terrible platform of Box that I think some people like and other people are finding difficult. But in any case, we have a space for that works for collaborative editing. I'm happy to put it there as a draft.
Great. Thanks, Todd. I still like Google Docs. I feel like it's easy, but we could try Box one more time. If it's not working, I'm just gonna paste it all into a Google Doc. It's not that big of a deal. We could delete the draft and download it or something to Box later. So, all right, thank you, Todd, for holding that. We can get that done. So I'll move us on to Pcrb legislation at the General Assembly. Vice Chair Lewis will start us out with this because this is something that I believe you added to the agenda.
Yeah, because I added it because of the overlapping duties that we have in our ordinance to look at discriminatory practices in city city departments. And also the fact that in the past we had fairly active subcommittee before we were forced to drop down to just 2 people at a time, that was looking into issues involving the police it's themselves. But I did check on what's coming out at the General Assembly. They haven't resolved themselves yet. There's still 2 bills up. One makes them mandatory and one doesn't make them mandatory. And my interest in it was, seeing how the PCRBs would in fact work with human rights commissions. And some of the human rights commissions already have PCRBs. At least one I know of has the most inactive, unnecessary PCRB that I've ever heard of. they don't do anything. But so I brought that, I added it to the agenda because I am interested in following up on how Human Rights Commission, our Human Rights Commission can interact with the PCRB on issues that we have in fact followed for several years. It's not like we just all of a sudden said, oh, PCRBs, that's a good idea. No, if they hadn't come up with it, I think if we continued down that path, we would have been recommending it. So that's why it's on the agenda. I'm staying in contact with my people that are following this legislation constantly, and right now they haven't resolved it. It's hard to resolve something that is so absolute, one absolutely mandatory and one absolutely not mandatory. Where is the middle ground on that? I'm going, I don't know how they're going to resolve it. One or the other of those bills is going to get through, and we'll just see. We're fortunate in Charlottesville that we already have one, in spite of its problems. But that's why it's on the agenda. That's why I'm interested in it, because I do see interaction with the PCRB under whatever rules.
Thank you, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it supposed to be, I don't think we announced this yet, but the Virginia Human Rights, VAHR is having a meeting this Saturday, and is the PCRB on the agenda?
I didn't see it on the agenda.
Okay.
Because they kind of, since it's a virtual meeting, they've kind of squeezed out some of the things that they normally do. They talked about having workshops with people going into rooms. And so far that doesn't look like it'll happen. However, that doesn't mean the issue won't be brought up. Yeah.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if that's what Curtis had said, that we were going to discuss some of the legislation.
Yeah.
Or okay. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Are there any comments or feelings that people would like to share, or not feelings, but ideas and thoughts that people would like to share about this agenda item? Well, that's radio silence, so I'm just gonna keep us moving. I will say thank you though, Ms. Lewis, for pointing this out. We have had this conversation before. I feel like a little bit of a broken record, but you all have said before there's enough injustice and discrimination that happens in Charlottesville, including with the police department, that I think there's enough for us all to collaborate on to help. So the PCRB definitely will be a leading stakeholder in that. And I do think Sue bringing up that conversation of how do we continue to collaborate and amplify the work will be something that we continue to talk about. If there are any action items, I think to call out one, it would probably be if somebody wanted to volunteer to reach out to a member of the PCRB and have a meeting or just start a conversation. That would be something that we could do to just start talking. So I'm going to leave it there for a little bit. Do people feel moved? All right. All right. So thank you, Ms. Lewis. I think we'll continue to have that here. I definitely think once the deputy city manager gets hired, it'll probably be easier to coordinate some of this stuff. All right, Laura, I'm sorry if you had.
Yeah, I didn't want to step up because I know that this is something that the commission has worked on prior to me coming back. But having read over a lot of Catherine's work before she left, I would be happy to reach out to PCRB and just to connect with them and see where we find commonalities in our work. I know that we're still trying to figure out what our roles look like, but a conversation can't hurt either.
Beautiful. That's awesome. I can put you in contact with some people.
Fabulous. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, so just keep moving on to the OHR staff update. Todd, are you ready or?
Yep, that's me. So I'll try to be quick about it. You probably saw my enormous colorful chart in the minutes packet there, or the agenda packet. Just to call out one thing, I've pat myself on the back. I finally got the data entered in through September. It was a lot easier actually, because you'll note that from February and March, the number of daily contacts dropped significantly, and I obviously COVID has a huge impact on that. It makes me aware that the walk-ins made up a huge, and face-to-face contact made up a huge portion of the work that I did on a daily basis when the office was physically open. So just to note that, but that's up, and so now it's it'll be easier to keep the data up to date, which is good. And I think the other two things I want to bring up from that report. We've talked about FIPA and FAP numerous times, FIPA being the agreement with EEOC to do employment investigations and get them referred from EEOC to the OHR, speaking a lot of acronyms here, and FAP being the agreement with the Housing and Urban Development HUD to do housing discrimination investigations. I've reached out to both agencies, got some response from HUD about it. They're looking at our ordinance to see if we could even be eligible to do something like that. They'll give me some feedback. Have not had successful response from EEOC despite multiple attempts. I'm going to keep trying though. I know they're also struggling because of COVID as well, just trying to keep up and do all the things that they do at the federal level. But in any case, I bring it up only because it's also pertinent. Given the changes in state law, I'm not even sure that the FIPA and FAP agreements will expand our jurisdiction, which is kind of the big thing that I think people are talking about as being valuable for entering into those agreements. And I still have some questions about whether or not the FIPA agreement would expand jurisdiction. There's some of the pieces of the state law, Virginia Human Rights Act, that were repealed by the Values Act during the past General Assembly, may in fact indicate that we don't have as many limitations on investigating employment discrimination as we once did. So I want to verify all those things before I confirm that, but doing some digging, talking to folks in the Attorney General's office as well as Allison in the City Attorney's office to try to really figure out what do those agreements do other than get you referrals from the federal agencies and potential reimbursement for cases that you are able to resolve. But beyond that, I'm not sure that it expands jurisdiction much beyond what we have right now, if at all. So I'm going to keep working on that because I think it's important in the changing landscape of state law to keep abreast of that, because we want to be able to assist people in the best and broadest way that we can locally, and that's my aim there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Human Rights Ordinance proposed revisions. But that's mostly what I've been working on. And as always, if you have questions, let me know. And also just want to make sure too that if folks are having any trouble accessing anything, please let me know. I heard from Jeanette at least that maybe the group email that we have with the city that's supposed to reach all commissioners might not be reaching all commissioners. So there may not be any way for you to know that you're not getting the emails, but if you didn't get the agenda packet ahead of this meeting, that would be one indication, because we did send that out on Monday. If you didn't get it, that's a clear sign that we may need to work on some technical stuff. So I'll leave it there, and thanks.
Thank you, Todd. I'll move into my updates and
Chantel, can I ask you a question?
oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Given the large drop off, Todd, in people coming in due to COVID, do you think that there's anything we can do to support that effort? Like if people have need but just aren't coming in, or what is your kind of analysis about that dynamic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been pondering, one of our charges is to do outreach, and made much more difficult by COVID, wanting to make sure that we're safe. Previously I would be out in the community knocking on doors sometimes, or tabling events to do outreach about the work that the office and the services we provide. I would say that if you are interacting in your daily life with people who you know are facing discrimination, please let them know that we are a resource. I'm sure you probably do that already, but maybe, maybe bring it up to the forefront of your mind and just kind of keep an eye out for things that might be of concern, and just pass along. People can reach me by cell phone. I'm pretty easy to reach if they call the office phone. My cell phone is on there. My cell phone number is on there. It's always on the bottom of my email too. If you don't have it, check it out there. But I think that's the best I can do right now. I've been trying to ponder other ways to do outreach, and I'm not exactly sure how to reach the people that would probably most need the services, other than just being present physically. So yeah, but open to ideas if anyone has.
Thank you, Jenna. That's a really great question. Todd, not Todd, Catherine, I know that you were sharing some ideas with me around evictions. I don't know if you wanted to bring that out to our greater group. Maybe it's something that Todd may be able to work with people on, or you're okay if you don't want to share it either. That's fine.
I just have to get to my mute buttons. Sorry. They weren't really ideas, right? It was just a sort of general discussion that there are groups in the community who are standing outside of court every day, that there are eviction hearings, making sure people have information on their rights. I don't know if there's a role for us to play in that kind of, trying to get information proactively to neighborhoods where we know there are higher concentrations of folks who might be facing eviction. We know that people often don't show up in court and then they don't appeal. They don't go through all the processes that they have available to them because they really don't know what their legal rights are. So I don't know if that's something the commission can do or not. And Todd, maybe you know already how we can fit into the ongoing community efforts.
I think it's a really great question, and I think that it is important also to distinguish. So evictions are a little bit different than discrimination, although discrimination could be a component of an eviction. I think a lot of the evictions that are happening right now, we're talking about unpaid rent and so forth as a result of unemployment and COVID and so forth. When I do hear anything like that, I typically kind of check in with the person to see if they've contacted like a legal aid, because oftentimes if somebody is in a financial situation in which they are being evicted because of unpaid rent, they probably qualify on an income basis to either go through Legal Aid Justice Center or Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. And I know both of those offices do handle eviction cases, which are, relevant to like Landlord-Tenant Act concerns in terms of law. But in any case, I think that contacting either of the two legal aids to see what work they're doing around outreach, because I do know that they have organized a few different things in terms of being present at General District Court and so forth, just to make sure that people know their rights and have access to attorneys if they need the support. So that's about what I would kind of think of in that regard.
Okay.
Thanks, Todd. I think where my brain was at with asking Catherine to chime in was just that, people that are, and I'm assuming a lot, but people that are probably being evicted right now were before COVID maybe living paycheck to paycheck and just were housing unstable to begin with. And we already know kind of the intersectionality of low wealth communities, race, and all the other discrimination, just factors that may, be around if someone is discriminated against. And so I guess my thinking is if there's a way for the Office of Human Rights to collaborate with some of those other organizations, potentially there can be other information around people's human rights, and that can be bundled in the information that's shared there. Contact information for you and people being able to get back in contact with the Office of Human Rights. Just know that we are working, or you are working, and you're not closed. So I guess my brain was more on you asked about outreach and how we could potentially do that. And that could be a potential avenue to just get some information out there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Just partnerships with the other local organizations. Yeah, and I'm in contact with a lot of them, but maybe a concerted effort to make sure that any information about our office, they have that on hand to pass to people I think they do that a little bit, but I think maybe if I do some outreach to those organizations, that would improve. So thanks for that.
Awesome. Are there any more other points people would like to share with Todd? Otherwise, I'm going to move into my update. And all right. So a couple of things, and towards the end, I'm actually going to ask Vice Chair Lewis and Miss Ann to just share some about public hearings. But I was able to have a meeting with the interim city manager, John Blair, which, you know, you guys were on those emails on, but I just wanted to share here that we discussed, you know, getting more of a regimen for reporting to city council and opening up that pipeline of communication so they're aware of the work that we're doing. Mr. Blair we're also able to go over that outstanding case that has been in the city manager's office for some time now. And he did make a verbal commitment. He can't promise anything, obviously, but he did make a verbal commitment to review that case and try to render a decision before the end of October, by October 31st. So fingers crossed. He did say he doesn't know about the case, doesn't know how thick that file is. So there's some potential that he may be doing it the first week of November, but he's definitely, I think there's high hopes with the intent. He did reach out to me to just catch up with the Human Rights Commission. I didn't solicit meeting with him at all. So I think he comes with a lot of good intentions to rebuild just some, you know, dormant relationships. Other than that, the Sue and Todd, under direction of Miss Smith, we were able to get the contact. Well, they already knew these people, but I didn't. The contact information for some folks for at the Virginia Human Rights Commission, and they came from, I believe, Prince William County. So the Prince William County Human Rights Commission actually shared some materials with us. The core goal of that meeting was just to go over public hearings, just to get our commission ready and just know about the procedures with that. We have held one, and at that time, I believe Anne and also Sue were on the commission. It was in 2014. So I'm going to give them some space to just share a little bit about public hearings, when it happens, what's the process for, you know, conducting one. We do have some procedures that were shared with us. So I'm not sure if Todd shared them out with the rest of the group, but we can follow up after this meeting with that. So Sue and Miss Ann, if you want to share a little bit about public hearings and why they are important. Sue, if you're talking, we can't hear you. And I think Miss Ann just fell off on the phone, so.
She did. What happened to your phone, girl? Her phone battery went low. Well, one of the things that we clarified on this talk is the difference between appeals and public hearings. And as we talked further, we realized that what we have done in the past was in fact an appeal. We didn't do a full public hearing. And the ordinance, when we get into the next session of the agenda, there's a whole section in there on hearings. I mean, the whole process from start to appeals to hearings to, and so on and so forth. But it was apparently Prince William has a document that has procedures for actually having hearings, which they're going to send to us just in case we want to do our own little resolution outside the ordinance itself, more of a policies and procedures sort of thing as to how we would actually conduct both appeals and hearings. What was interesting was that they have had a lot of appeals, but very few true public hearings. I loved it the way Curtis put it. when it gets to the point that you're about to advertise a public hearing, some parties would choose to settle because they don't want their dirty linen out in the public, which I thought was very interesting. Whereas an appeal process is all internal and they're not forced to go public. So I expect that we will probably not have to do much in the way of true public hearings, although I don't know how this latest thing is going to shake out. But that was, for me, the most interesting thing that Curtis said, that they've only had one real public hearing because people settled. Out of the many appeals that they've had, people settle before it gets to that stage. They just don't want to be out there with everybody reading about them.
Mm-hmm.
They have, let me see, I'm looking at my notes.
That's okay. Miss Ann is back if she wants to chime in.
Yeah, you can chime in about our appeal thing that we've done.
Thank you, Sue. The appeal that we had was just a matter of the person coming before us, the commission, and discussing what their issue was. And we reviewed all the documents that were presented to us, as well as we had a video of this particular situation. And we just denied the appeal, and it was all over with. The person wasn't a happy camper, but you know, that's how the appeal process works. I think he had gone through all other steps, and it was finally up to us to make that decision.
Thank you, Miss Ann. So Todd, you just unmuted yourself. I wanted to.
Saw that. Good eye. I just wanted to make one point of clarification, and Ann, so you can speak to this. So you mentioned that appeals were internal and not public, but I do believe that even the appeals are a matter of public record. Isn't that correct? Because it's in front of the whole commission?
It would be, I think it was public record because it would have been reflected in our minutes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's all I know.
Thank you. So we may be holding a public hearing or an appeal potentially. Probably not a public hearing because it seems as though people usually settle, but in the case that if it happens, one of the things that they did share was the best way to hold a public hearing is actually to have a panel, do it a panel style. So it's a suggestion to have a panel of 3 instead of the whole commission meeting for that. So it'd be similar to how we handle ad hoc committees or things like that. So there will be an ad hoc panel for handling the public hearing, and it'll be 3 people if we decide to pass a resolution that way. So we'll share those procedures with you. Todd will share them after this meeting. So we'll have them. I do think it would be important for us to establish, pass a resolution and establish procedures for conducting our public hearings, just so we're all on the same page with them. And I think that's all I really had to share in the chair update. I don't know if there are any questions now. And Jessica was saying they're getting feedback from you, Miss Ann. So if you could just when you're not talking, mute your cell phone, because we can hear it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so it is 8:15, and we do have a work session in front of us. Hopefully we can get it done in the next 15 minutes. So we are back to our ad hoc committee updates on the human rights ordinance. So that was chaired by Lindell, or it's a small group. So it's Lindell and the vice chair, Sue, that will lead us through it. And Todd, I don't know if you want to go ahead and share your screen or how we want to do it this time, but I believe that's what we did last meeting.
Yep, I'm gonna pull that up right now.
I don't know how Sue feels, but Todd did an excellent job of walking us through it last time. So if I could prevail upon him to do it this time, that would be awesome.
That's where I am.
That's right. We get the experts to do things, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Todd?
Thanks, Todd. We can see it just in case you don't know. That worked. I can't hear you because you're muted.
Unmute yourself, Todd.
Oh.
You can't unmute? Well, that's sad.
Okay, there we go. My computer was having some trouble there. Sorry about that. Okay, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you still see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. It gets confusing. So last meeting, we went through some of these articles. Scroll down, there's going to be a little bit of delay. You'll notice that there's things that are, and you can see at the top that key, the things that are in red text that are stricken through are things that are being changed or removed. Blue is new text. The green highlights you'll see are things you already approved for recommendation to council. And the yellow highlights are new things that we have made correction and changes to for your consideration tonight. It's probably the easiest way to do it is to probably go about it section by section. And then maybe make a motion if you want to consider it for adoption and recommendation to council. Does that make sense?
Great. Yes, that does. So just how we did it last meeting.
Just how we did it last time. So I'll try to explain what's going on here. In this first one, this defines what the protected activities and classes are. So this is section 2-431. In A, basically what you'll notice here is the addition. Well, I'll go through it one by one. The first thing is you'll notice that housing is stricken out, not because it's not a protected activity, but because we added it as a separate sub point under this section because it has some different protections than do any of the other protected activities. So that's not to say that we're not doing that housing discrimination enforcement. It's just moved down and we'll get there. The other things you'll notice is that we added private education to specifically call out that we cannot address public education because that's regulation of a state entity, which we cannot do. In addition, I reorganized the protected classes to reflect how they're laid out in the Virginia Human Rights Act. So it's clearer when you're comparing the two documents, if anyone goes that far, you can see that. So, and additionally, sexual orientation and gender identity are included as separate protected classes as well as status as a veteran, which is, I'm not sure why we didn't have it in there before, but it's protected across all the state statutes that deal with human rights. So I don't know if you want me to read all of subpoint A or if that was enough of an explanation. Or if everybody's had a chance to see it.
Thanks, Todd. I don't think we need to read it out loud, though I am happy to. My voice is definitely going to go, so I can't read every single thing. So
I'm happy to read it to take that weight off. No problem. If people want me to. If not, I can move on to B and just explain that, and then you can consider both points A and B in this section together.
I think that, well, I remember calling you about A, and it helped me when you explained B. So I do think we should.
I'll go to B. So having noted that we crossed out housing in the first in section A there, that's because it's in subpoint B. I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to make sure. There's another yellow part down there that we'll talk about that's related to this. But in any case, the subset B here, it calls out housing discrimination explicitly. And the reason we did that is because there are some protected classes in the Virginia Fair Housing law that are not related to the other protected activities. And that specifically being elderliness, which is similarly equivalent to age, but that's the language they use in the Fair Housing Act. Familial status, which is not a protected class in under any of the other protected activities, as well as source of funds, which is one of the more important ones because that's what we're talking about when, say, someone has a Section 8 voucher or housing choice voucher and tries to apply that to an apartment complex and are rejected on the basis of bringing that as a source of funds. So if you look down at subsection D, that is the definition of source of funds from the Virginia Fair Housing law, just to make sure that that is clear in the ordinance because it is a new protected class and wasn't considered previously. So that's why that's in there. So the reason I'm suggesting taking all three of these subsections as a whole is because they all function kind of as a unit, and it would be hard to pass one without the other. So I'll leave it at that for this piece and ask questions or do what you will from there.
Thank you, Todd. So when we're in this view, I can't really see everyone. If you want to chime in, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And
This is Jeanette. Could I be so bold as to motion to approve these 3 paragraphs A, B, and D, the changes in section 2-431?
I'll second that.
all right, so Jeanette, you put up a motion to adopt sections, okay, A, B,
B and D.
C, and D for section 2-431, and then Sue Lewis has seconded, and I'll go ahead and open it up for, that was really bold, Jeanette. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for discussion. I hope everybody likes these sections.
This is Ann. I'm wondering if we're looking at A, B. I know C, which the green meant that we've already voted on. Okay, I'm okay. I understand better. So I'm good with it.
So it's A, B, and D.
And D, yeah.
Does anybody have any, I know when I first read this, it did not make any sense to me, and I immediately called Todd. So I'm really hoping that folks are really understanding everything that's here. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Todd, for the explanations. That was helpful.
And I think maybe it might help just to say that the premise behind doing these changes is to make the protections as broad as legally possible for the office and the commission. So that is the spirit of these revisions.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there are no more discussions, which I think there aren't any, I'm just clicking through real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out, and ask Todd to bring us through the vote.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go through. Sue?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Are we still screen sharing?
We are. There's more to discuss, but I can stop sharing for the vote if you'd like.
Yeah.
I think so.
Wait, okay, let's do that. Okay. Let's see. And so I'll resume with Jeanette.
Yes.
Ernest?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
And Lindell?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bold actions, Jeanette, taking names tonight, running us through this. Okay. Thanks for that. Todd, could you go to the next section? That was literally through. I feel like that was most of it.
Yeah, everything else until we get over to 434 or 437 has already been approved.
Yeah.
So everything in green,
Yeah.
we've already approved, as you know. So here we are coming up on yellow. So here we're entering into section 2-437, which really deals with the actual enforcement piece and sort of the mechanism that we use to enforce. You all approved B, which we talked about last time. What you see below, and I do hope you've had a chance to read through it previously, because it is a little meaty, but what this is telling you, it's basically clarifying the steps that we use from once we've determined something falls within the jurisdiction of the office to do something about, how we then handle that that process of addressing that allegation of discrimination. The changes that you see here, I'm going to give you a general summary rather than going through it word by word, though if that's preferred, I'm happy to read it to you if that's helpful. But what we're trying to do here is clarify the process in practice, right? The language as it was a bit muddled in terms of the steps and how we actually carried out these steps in practice. And so what this is trying to do is clarify the steps that it takes to get something from basically the intake stage all the way through the determination of probable cause or no probable cause, at which point we could then refer it for public consideration for public hearing to the commission or close the case. But that is really what's being talked about in here. Let me know how you would best like to digest this. I would say that I could read pieces of it, or we can call out maybe what each subsection sort of mostly focuses on, whatever you think.
Thank you, Todd. I do think it would be helpful for this one to go chunk by chunk, especially C, that there's a lot changed with C. Yeah, I do get what's going on. I think I agree with it. I just want folks to feel comfortable.
Yeah, and so this is really the initial step. Like, what do we do when we first receive it and determine that it's within our jurisdiction? I don't know if you want me to read that piece of it or if you've all had a chance to, but basically what's happening here is the initial step is to, once we determine it's in the jurisdiction, we do some fact-finding inquiry to then decide whether or not to pursue further action if the complainant is interested. The first thing that we would do is offer the opportunity for mediation, but what we can do includes mediation, conciliation, formal investigation. It all depends on what the client is willing to, the complainant is willing to do right off the bat, and then we proceed from there. And then it also explains that upon the completion of a formal investigation, that's when the written determination of cause is made. I don't know if there's anything else to talk to you about that. It's mostly just clarifying language to make it easier to follow the process and see.
Chantel?
Yes. Sorry, I
If
really see everyone. But yes, I think that's Miss Ann.
Yeah. If at all possible, can I offer a motion that Part C be accepted as it's been corrected?
Yes, you can.
I might even second that.
So, other thought? Do you want to vote on these section by section as well, or do you want to? I'm just going to scroll a little bit. I think this one is also 3 subset sections. If you wanted to consider them in whole, or if you wanted to consider them in part.
Oh, I was under the impression Chantel said that it would be, she thought it'd be good to do it all in chunks, but maybe I'm looking at the wrong part of the chunk. So if that would be the case, it would be C and D.
Yeah.
And I guess
And F.
F, let's see, and, it would be F added to it.
That's correct. Sorry, I'll try to make
Okay.
this so you can see it all. I'm moving it around a little bit. I apologize.
No, that's all right, because I'm looking at a copy, but
Okay.
Then I would offer the motion that we accept C, D, F, and all of its explanation within this ordinance.
Okay.
Or
Yeah, section 2, 437. C.
oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part.
So I'm just gonna repeat what I think you meant to say, Miss Ann.
Okay.
So you put a motion on the table to accept sections C, the revised section C, D, and F of section 2-437 under duties and responsibilities.
That is correct.
Okay. Do I have a
And
second?
I'll still second that,
Okay.
now that it's clear.
Great. So now that the motion's on the table and been seconded, we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion. Really, if anything sounds confusing, please say something. And I can't see everyone. But I do think it's important that we discuss what's in front of us.
If you'd
Chantel?
like, I can scroll up again so you can see D and F. Sorry to interrupt, Jessica. Apologize.
No, it's okay. This is a very meaty section, and every time we get here, I'm just going to ask, and you can just tell me no. Is it possible to add in like an appendix that has that visual representation that you work so hard on, Todd? Like, I don't know if that's possible, but every time we get to this section, I think the same question to ask. I'm just going to ask it, be bold and ask it tonight, but I think that'd be really helpful in this section.
So I can speak to that. I think when we've talked about that with Allison and what the ordinance sort of lays out the really sort of the broad concepts. And I think what we want to do as a companion document, probably what we would call a procedural document, is include references for each section and things like that, like the actual visual diagram of how the process works, as well as references to the enabling legislation at the state level that makes this even possible for us to do. So I hear that, and I think that's definitely going to be something we work on. I know that Allison spent a significant amount of time drafting a memo, actually to the HRC, which I don't believe she's submitted yet, that outlines the why around public and not private education as a protected activity, for example. And I think a document like that would also go well in a procedural summary like this. So yeah, that point is taken.
And if I can say it, I'm trying to phrase it exactly right. This is, I think, what some of these outside groups were looking for in terms of just how we're doing these sort of things. And we eliminated a lot of language that was either unnecessary or not clear, and made it much clearer. I thought Lindell and I and Allison and Todd did a really good job in terms of understanding exactly why we took things out and why we put things in. But I agree with Todd, eventually you'll have a document that is an actual procedural document for doing this. It'll pick up most of the stuff from this ordinance, but it'll be more procedural.
Okay. So there is a lot here. I will say most of it, once your eyes kind of relax on all the yellow and the red, it does read pretty clear and straightforward. A lot of it is just feels like things have been shuffled around for the most part, just to be more clear about what the step-by-step process is, as Todd said earlier. It doesn't look like anything has been deleted in terms of like what we have in our toolbox to do for doing an investigation and fact finding. It's just been shuffled around to be more clear and direct about the procedure. So Todd, did I understand that correctly, or?
That's right. And I guess if I was to summarize that, like D and F there, you know, I think the main thing to bring to light there is that, you know, we took out that determination of probable cause in that one spot because, you know, a determination of probable cause can really only happen after there's a complete formal investigation. And it made the way it was written prior made it seem like you could make that determination much earlier in the process. And really, we wanted to make it very clear that determination of probable cause really happens after all the fact finding happens and not before. So that would be like the summary of what you're seeing here.
Okay. Todd, do you know if these changes will impact the speed in which an investigation occurs? So we kind of just clarified the process. Would this impact like your ability to?
No, the only thing that impacts the speed of an investigation is kind of up to the investigative process, right? How quickly can you find the witnesses that need to give testimony? How quickly can you get documents and so forth? Of course, we're going to always try to do it as quickly as possible to seek resolution for the complainant, right? But and for the just for the allegation generally. But the idea also is that, you know, these processes happen when we have all of the sort of infrastructure in place at the city level. And so right now, the real challenge right now is not having, we have one staff person, right?
Yeah.
One staff person cannot carry out this complete process. So you need at least 2 staff people, one to do an investigation, one to write a determination. It's a conflict of interest for an investigator to write a determination of cause. So right now we're deferring determinations to the city hierarchy, which lands in the city manager's office at this point. So really the fastest, the way that this can be processed quicker is if we have a full staff.
Awesome. I'm so grateful that one counselor has stuck on to hear that. I don't know if Counselor Snuck is registering, if he's sitting down to dinner or whatever, but the Office of Human Rights could use more staff. Just leave it. Okay, so the motion is still on the table. It's been seconded. If there's no other discussion points, I'm gonna go ahead and ask Todd to bring us through the vote. Great. Todd, could you help us conduct the vote?
Sure thing. Sue?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Ernest?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
And Lindell?
Yes.
Great.
Passes.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much for the folks on the ad hoc committee that led us through the ordinance rewrites, and as well as the social justice organizations that just really got us thinking a little bit about our ordinance, as well as the city attorney's office for helping us go through all the language. There's a lot of work that went in there, so I'm really grateful for the folks that did that.
And Chantel, I'm sorry to keep this going for a little bit longer, but there's 3 points that we still should bring up.
I thought they were all green.
No, here's what it is, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. So there were 3 things we were asked to consider in terms of ordinance revisions in that letter, right, from the social justice organizations. And that was, one was whether we should put something in the ordinance that said the commission will do an annual, what is it? An annual, I'm going to forget the name, study on systemic discrimination. So That was something that was suggested. The second one was whether or not, instead of reporting annually to council, we should amend the ordinance to say that we report quarterly. And the third thing to consider was whether or not to include in the ordinance something about a council liaison. Now, what the Sue and Lindell decided was that none of those seemed to rise up to the point where we wanted to include language at this point, but that we would bring them to you for discussion should there be, and then we could take it back for further revision if that seemed like something you wanted to put in the ordinance itself. So I'll leave it at that. But if you have questions about those 3 points, I can try to restate them more clearly.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Todd. I do recall that conversation. For some reason, I thought that wasn't, we had deemed that something that didn't necessarily need to go into the ordinance earlier, but I'm happy to, for us to have conversation on it tonight. So the first point you brought up about the study, if it needs to directly go into the ordinance. Let me just, this is our last agenda item. So we can take a little bit of time on it, but I do want to let us know that we are at the 2 hour and 10 minute mark, just for city staff. So if folks have any thoughts they'd like to share on the first item Todd brought up, the study, should it be in the ordinance?
This is Catherine. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not exactly sure what that means, a study on systemic racism that's presented to the council every year. Like do we have any more information about what that means?
Catherine, that's exactly why we decided that we didn't think we would put that in.
Yeah.
Why we wouldn't agree with their suggestion.
I would love to see us doing something, not a study on systemic racism seems a little broad as a
yes.
student idea for a paper. I'd be like, whoa, we need to scale this back, right? But I would love to see us producing kind of focused reports, you know, and talking about whether or not we have the capacity to do something like that. You know, like the kinds of reports that have looked at transportation in a city through a gender lens, for example, and how transportation is or isn't serving women in particular, or like Click's recent report on racism in housing. So those seem like the kinds of things that would be within our purview. But I'm not interested, I think, in putting an annual report in systemic racism or whatever it was in our bylaws.
Yep.
Thank you.
Lindell, I think your hand went up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I completely agree with Catherine, and I think that it is within our purview to write reports like that, especially when we identify something that is an urgent need to identify and talk about, but that we don't need to put that in the ordinance as specific topics or even as broad a topic as that. That was what the decision that we kind of came to and brought back.
Thank you. You know, it'd be great if we had a joint session with City Council and we could talk about all the studies that we may want to see. We can also just suggest things to them. That's great too. I'm sorry, guys. My sarcasm is like, I'm tired. So are there any other comments that people would like to make on this topic?
I agree. And I also think that the report section 2441 like includes language that, you know, if we did want to write a report, it would be encompassed under that.
It does, very definitely.
I agree with you, Jeanette, on that one as well. All right. So I think it sounds like we don't think it needs to be in there. So if we could go ahead to the second one that Todd, you mentioned, my short-term memory is failing me, so I don't remember what
Don't
you
worry.
said.
That's what I'm
Thank you.
here
I couldn't
for.
remember either.
It is to whether change our annual reporting cycle to council to a quarterly reporting cycle. That, you know, the reality of that even being possible, I'm not sure of, but the question on the table is whether there should be language in the ordinance that says we report quarterly to council.
If I could speak to that, Chantel is already in conversation with the acting city manager, and I think it's incumbent on them to ask us for reports instead of putting it into the ordinance. If they want to hear from us monthly, they better let us know. If they want to hear from us quarterly, or if an annual report, which we've done for several years, is sufficient, they need to let us know. It should not be in our ordinance.
Thank you. So does anybody have any other comments to share around that?
I agree with Sue.
Of course you do.
Of course.
All right. So I don't think it needs to go in the ordinance. I don't know if I'm supposed to be sharing all of my thoughts, really trying to be the neutral party here, but I'm happy to start a culture of sending email communications to council and opening up that pipeline, because they have a lot of things that they have on their radars. And so I think, you know, a culture or a tradition or whatever word we want to use about the chair and vice chair sending an email to city council, updating them on the things that we've done, could happen quarterly. But in terms of like an official annual report, when Todd and I go up to city council, or before, I guess the last one, Charlene was here, that does take a lot of resources out of the Office of Human Rights. And considering that they only have one staff person, I don't think it's wise to subject the Office of Human Rights to do quarterly formal reports. But just because it's not in our ordinance doesn't mean we can't do it.
Number 3.
So the last one was whether or not to add into the ordinance that there would be a council liaison, a non-voting council liaison appointed to the commission. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we did talk about that, and it's a great idea, but to put it in the ordinance, we are directing council to do something. We're not going to name the liaison that we want, that they have to be doing that. And so to put it in the ordinance, again, is telling council something that they are supposed to be doing. I don't think it belongs in the ordinance. I think it's a great idea, and you know, if they want, and they probably should appoint a liaison, since they have liaisons to other boards and commissions. But we can't tell them to do it.
Yep. Are there any other comments?
Jessica has her hand up.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't know why.
Okay,
Go ahead, Jessica.
It's okay. You're seeing right through us. I like this idea. If we don't put it in the ordinance, how do we go about recommending it to council? I think we should recommend it to council, even if we don't put it in our ordinance.
Right.
I don't know how to do that, but I would like to recommend that to council. I think that's going to be really important.
Awesome. I agree with that. Are there any, Catherine, every time you come off video, I feel like you want to say something, but maybe you just hit the video button by accident?
I hit the video button by accident. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, it sounds like we don't really think that last point needs to go in the ordinance as well. If folks are, and I'm also just being self-aware that we're probably a little bit fatigued. So if it does happen that folks have thoughts that they just didn't vocalize today, and just send an email. We could probably, I mean, the ad hoc committee is still here. We haven't closed it down, so I'm sure it could be sent to Lindell and Sue to think about it.
Well, could I suggest that we just, we can direct the chair, we can't direct council to let council know that the commission thinks a liaison from council would be a very good idea. That's all you'd have to do.
I can do that. I do think we've had this conversation with Counselor McGill.
Right.
Or, so I do think it's a good idea, especially because we don't have an OHR director. We have Todd playing the interim slot. So at least it was my understanding that when there was a director, or Charlene would send reports or at least casually engage with city council and the city manager's office. So I think the intentions around the recommendations was just to ensure that there is more communication between city council and our commission, especially as we're an appointed body and we're one of those, I don't know how they listed them, but it was a priority commission, I think is what I don't know the terminology they use. I do understand the intent around those recommendations. So I'm happy we're able to discuss them. If there are no other comments on this topic, like I said, I know that we're all tired. Just please go ahead and send them to me or Todd later. If we need to send them to the ad hoc committee, we can make sure that Lindell and Sue have those things and they can explore it in between our next meeting. I'm going to go ahead and close us out of our work session though, and move us on to our matters by the public if folks are okay with that. All right, great. So we're in the last matters by the public session of our meeting. If there are folks that have attended and you are on the phone, you can press *9. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand and Todd will enable your speaking component. So right now it's just Counselor Snook in the crowd on Zoom. And I believe the other one is Ann. Okay, Counselor Snook has raised his hand.
You should be able to unmute and speak.
Yeah, there we go. So I just wanted to say in response to sort of the last item that you all were talking about, one of the problems with having a council liaison is that each one of us is already liaison to about 7 or 8 different groups. One of the purposes of our winnowing the number of groups in the meeting we had a week or 2 ago was to try to get it down from 50 plus to maybe only 40 plus. And so asking council to designate a liaison is not going to be an easy sell. I will tell you that. We've been trying to limit that rather than increase the number of groups to which we need to have liaisons. I would say, and Chantal, I think I sent you an email about this about 10 days ago. I was surprised to learn, but having been copied on an email from you to the rest of council, I was surprised to learn a number of things that I hadn't known about y'all and what you've been up to. And in particular, the mention that you had done some sort of work on policing was a matter of some interest, because that's of course something the council is going to be looking at in about 3 different ways right now. And so I'm aware of the fact that I am not aware of what an awful lot of these different groups are doing. And it's really hard to keep up with what 40 other groups are doing. One of the things that I appreciated about you all is that at least you have your minutes posted when they're relatively current. I remember I went looking for the minutes of the Places Task Force last year sometime, and the most recent minutes had been from 2014. And it wasn't very helpful to figure out what they were all doing. I'm dissing them there. They're a little bit more current now, but the point is still that the fact that you all have posted your minutes that we can see what you're doing, and we can, if if it seems appropriate, if from time to time that your chair or vice chair or somebody were to send us an email just to council, which goes to all councilors, plus the city manager, plus the city attorney, plus various other department heads, just saying, if there's some issue that you think we need to know about. It probably doesn't matter a lot, for example, to what we're doing to know whether you're doing an investigation into a particular incident of housing discrimination. I mean, I'm glad to know that that's happening, but in terms of our policy issues and what we have to confront on a daily basis or a weekly basis, not terribly important. But to learn, for example, that that there's a study that you all have done of policing, and is one of those things that. And there may be other issues that I'm not even aware enough of to raise the question with you. If there are things like that that you've looked at on these issues, these broader issues, please, somebody just drop us an email from time to time and let us know. And if it's something that dovetails with something else that we're going on about, I'm sure somebody will want to make sure that that connection gets made. Anyway, it was an interesting meeting to listen in on. I listened in on the CRHA meeting before this one and came here in part because I was curious about all of your different discussions about the changes to the ordinance, and I wanted to hear from you all a little bit more about that. I appreciate it. It's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Snook. I promise I'm not ghosting you with your email. You sent a really thorough email, and I'm not gonna lie, it was amazing, and it also overwhelmed me at the same time. It was amazingly overwhelming because you had a lot of ideas in there, and so I will get back to you. I promise.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming to our meeting. We do appreciate it. And anytime that you would like to reach out to us, please do.
Thanks.
All right. Are there any responses to Councilor Snook? All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and tell Todd, thank you so much for always holding this meeting, especially making sure that our minutes are uploaded to the website. I can see folks are giving you some gratitude in the chat box as well. If there are no more responses to the matters by the public, or specifically Councilor Snook's comments, I'm going to go ahead and move us to commissioner updates. So if folks have anything they would like to share really quickly, now is the time to do it.
Jessica?
No, we never got back to telling Brian if we were going to have a second meeting in November and December. I just want to make sure we didn't leave this without adding that to the calendar, if that's what we decided.
That was a really great, so I guess, thank you, Jessica. That was amazing. So yes, we will be having a second meeting. I think who do we appoint? Lauren, Jessica, and Ernest. I'm not sure if you all would like to meet as a nomination committee, the nominating body. You may not need to, but that's one thing that you could do if you want to. You don't need to tell him right now, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
If you could see the big board behind me, your name is already on it.
Nice. Okay.
So just let Todd know when you want to have a meeting. We'll be glad to help you out.
Great. And we could just let you know what type of meeting it is. We don't have to confirm what it is right now.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. That was awesome. Okay, Sue?
I just want to remind everybody of the VAHR, Virginia Association for Human Rights, Zoom meeting on Saturday morning at 9:30. I think Todd sent out all of the agenda, which has the Zoom information on it. And you all are members because you all are you are members of the commission, therefore you're members of the VAHR. And it's much more fun when you get to go to Virginia Beach, but this for their annual meeting. But we're stuck with COVID, and we're going to have it virtual. And I hope many of you will just chime in. If it gets too boring, you can hang up.
Thanks, Sue. Jeanette put in the chat box that she didn't receive an invitation. I also didn't receive an invite. So I don't.
Dad sent them out. I know he did because I sent it to him.
I think we're having some trouble with the like group email again. When we have a Human Rights Commission listserv sort of email that IT puts together, and we try all sorts of things. You know, sometimes Chantel will send out a thing trying to send it to the whole commission. It doesn't reach there, so I'll forward it, and it still doesn't get to everybody. So I want to make sure if you can. Well, here's what I would ask: if you didn't either get the agenda packet for this meeting, or if you did not receive the invitation to the VAHR, send me a message independently afterward. And also just let me know what is the best email for you to receive things. And I want to confirm that we have your email correct on IT's list, and just make sure that people are getting stuff, because there's nothing worse than getting left out of something that you should certainly be able to be a part of if you want to be.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Are there any other announcement folks would like to make? All right.
And I wish you the best with your extra free time. I hope you get to spend it chilling.
No, Miss Ann, that's probably not gonna happen. Yeah, I guess this is the last time we're gonna see you up here. You'll probably join as an attendee in the audience, so I'm sure you'll keep me in check and just share all your comments.
She'll be one of those members of the public that we have to deal with.
Yes, I will be. Matters by the public. And yes, I do intend to keep up with what's going on.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, it is 9:01, and I am going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Todd, thanks for running this, and I know that you'll be in contact with next steps. Again, Lauren, Jessica, and Ernest, you all are on the nominating committee, so I'm going to follow up with an email with you after this as well. And we'll go ahead and send City Council the resolution that we passed tonight, along with some ideas, some recommendations. All right. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.